It's October, so what better time to review John Carpenter's classic, Halloween, The Night He Came Home. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a good one today. I'm Nick, and today I'm continuing my October reviews with the classic Halloween, directed by John Carpenter, co-written and produced by Deborah Hill. It was time to do this movie, guys. I've been asked about this film for the last few years since I started my YouTube channel, and today was a day I'm going to review it. Now, right off the bat, guys, I just want to say this is not my franchise. I do enjoy Halloween, but I'm a much bigger fan of Friday the 13th. That's my franchise as a whole. But we're not going to be talking about the whole franchise. We're just talking about this classic film right here from 1978. And I've only seen this when I was like 15, 16. It was later in life. I don't have that nostalgia of being like a little kid watching this like a lot of people has. Growing up, I have seen H2O in the 90s when it released when I was really young. But that's basically the only Halloween movie I ever had experience with, and I only really watched it once. Didn't remember much of it from back in the past, so when I did get around to watching this, it was later in life. And funny enough, as a kid, I always mixed up Michael Myers and Mike Myers, the actor. Like, I remember being like 8 or 10 or so, and I'd always get those two mixed up when people were talking about them. And I just thought that's pretty funny thinking back on that. Now, this movie didn't create or invent the slasher wheel. It really just set a template and a certain formula that a lot of movies follow nowadays. After this movie came out, we had Black Christmas, Psycho, other types of movies like this before Halloween, but I feel like this one really set the bar on what you had to do. Whether we have our final girl, we got our final chase at the very end with our killer, finding all the dead bodies like randomly popping out in the third act. Just having a scene in a closet, which they've done a lot after this film. It just goes on and on, like cutting the phone line. There's so many things that they do in this movie that seem small, but it really made an impact on the horror community and all these future films with all their 80s slashers and that. They really took a lot of notes from this film. And our basic plot to this film is about a mental patient who escapes, goes back to his hometown, and terrorizes these group of teens, stalking them and murdering them. It's a very simple and quite basic story, but it's elevated by John Carpenter's direction. All the little things he added in here. Our basic story's nice, but once you start talking about his score that he added on top of there, his iconic theme that everybody knows, whether you've seen the movie or not, it's just so iconic. We get the piano there and the synths, and it really starts off kind of basic with its music, and it just builds and builds and adds more tracks and layers as the song goes on to where it ends as this big kind of epic. And the other scores and musical cues used throughout the film are really used wisely as well. They really enhance the scenarios, creates a lot of tension. It's just really eerie and creepy. These songs and this score, that it actually is a big part of what makes this film scary, in my opinion. I also like all the little subtle foreshadowing that Carpenter places throughout this film as well. Like whether you're talking about Laurie Strode going down the street singing "I wish I had you all alone, just the two of us," while Myers is like stalking her from behind, which eventually will lead to that. Whether we're getting that lesson in class where Laurie's listening to the teacher talk about fate and how the day of reckoning will come, and just all these little things just all add up. Like even her telling Tommy throughout the first of the film that she will protect him tonight from the boogeyman, even though she doesn't realize she will actually have to do that. Like, it's just brilliant, and it's not something you really pick up on your first couple watches. It's on rewatches you notice all the little things that this movie perfects. Like I said, the score, the atmosphere, the subtle little dialogue moments, it's all there to elevate this product. Now, getting into our characters a little bit, we got our final girl, Laurie Strode, played by really young Jamie Lee Curtis. She's great in the role. This is a lot of people's favorite final girl, and I can see why. She's really relatable, likable, this young, shy, smart young girl. And she really goes through a lot throughout this film, and the performance is there. You can see the terrified look on her face. Jamie Lee Curtis completely sells it. And yeah, I can see why this is some people's favorite final girl. She just makes a few dumb decisions, but that could just be in the heat of the moment, you know, where she, for instance, where she stabs Myers in the neck with the needle and basically just acts as if that's it and just turns around and lays her on the couch, where you got to double tap that shit or get the hell out of the house, you know? Again, this happens again later in the movie when she stabs him with the knife out of the closet. Then she kind of just stumbles away and stays there for him to get back up and come back at her. I understand she probably thought he'd be dead, but still, after these traumatic experiences happening, you just want to get the hell out of there, get the kids, and get somewhere safe. That was the only thing that kind of bothered me with Laurie Strode, is those decisions. But just as a final girl herself, she is great. And her friends in this are Linda, played by PJ Souls. I think she's a whole lot of fun. Very spunky character. She does say the word totally way too many times. Like, totally too many times. I feel like this is the bad dialogue that we got in Halloween Kills with Evil Dies Tonight a million times. Well, in this movie, it's totally, totally, totally. Yeah, you could have probably removed a few of those. I get that teens kind of talk like that, but this one was a little bit overdone, where she says it multiple times in one sentence. But she is a whole lot of fun, and I do love the character. On the other hand, we got her other friend Annie, played by Nancy Kyes, I believe, and she hams it up a little too much for me, that actress. I feel like she's in a movie set 20, 30 years before 1978. This, the way that she acts, it feels very theatrical, like in a play, like, not in a cinematic sense. And yeah, she's just a little bit cheesy, especially with her dialogue when she's on the phone with Paul or with Laurie later. It's just her dialogue and the way she delivers the dialogue. It just comes off as a little bit campy to me. She's an alright character though, but easily my least favorite in the film. And of course, the kids are a whole lot of fun. I really love Tommy and Lindsay. They're great. They feel so genuine and like these real kids. Comes off so natural. Whether they're just like scaring each other on Halloween, or like how Lindsay's watching TV and she's like, I'm scared, but she doesn't stop watching the movie in the dark. You gotta love that she's watching The Thing from Another Planet or Another World, the first version of The Thing that Carpenter eventually remade. It's awesome that that's in this film, and yeah, I could totally see a young horror fan being so sucked into the TV at that young age, but at the same time being completely terrified but can't look away. That is basically my exact experiences. Yeah, and Tommy's a whole lot of fun, always like looking out the window for the boogeyman and that, and I feel like these two are just such great characters, and they just come off as so natural. Now getting into the big one is Dr. Sam Loomis, played by the great Donald Pleasence. This is the performance of the movie. They got this veteran actor in here, and he does such a phenomenal job. He is our basic kind of like narrator. He tells us about Myers throughout this movie, explaining it to the sheriff and whatnot. And he might sound like a madman at the beginning of this movie, the way he's going on and saying how Michael's pure evil, and he just can't stress that point enough. And as the movie's going on, you're like, wow, this guy is telling the truth. He's not so crazy after all. And he got some of the best dialogue ever put to cinema. That whole scene where he's going on about Myers in the house to the sheriff about how I seen this kid with the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes, and ending all the way on them. He's just purely simple evil, you know. That whole big dialogue scene is just masterful. It's something you can really break down in a scene breakdown. I know Jason loves doing those, and I think he has done that one, if I'm not mistaken, already. But yeah, it's just so great. You're just enthralled. It's the one time a character in this movie is really super engaging, and I feel like he is throughout this whole film, but Donald Pleasence just brings it to this role. I also love the line, "Death has come to your little town." It's just like so spooky, and I don't want to say he makes the movie, but he really ups the quality of this film, in my opinion. And we can't talk about characters without talking about the Shape. Michael Myers himself, played by Nick Castle, and he just, what a phenomenal job with his movements, everything. He's just so creepy. His look, the overalls and that, who would have thought that would have been a menacing look? But the mask is what really does it. And Captain Kirk mask turned into one of the most terrifying masks of all time. Brilliant what they did with this. I think it was just a chance. It was like 1 in a million chances of getting this right, and they did. It's just so menacing. And like I said, his movements in that, like when he's walking after Laurie, he's not running or anything, but he's just steady after you. And I feel like that could be even more scary. And the character seems very curious and in an almost childlike way, how he's stalking people and how he shows up like at the school and watching the kids and that. It's like, it's been so long with him locked up, he's kind of like taken in the world. And there's a whole lot of mystery to this character, and that is what makes him work. That's what makes him more scary as well. We do not know what drives this kid except for pure evil. And you could make assumptions that he's supernatural or whatnot, and there's many little theories out there that can justify that, like the ending, how he gets shot a bunch of times and then he just disappears, or like different scenes how he disappears at the clothesline when Laurie's looking out. But I love that they do not tell you, that it's left very ambiguous the way it ends, and that's what's creepy, not knowing what the hell he really is. Like, he's set up as this human, as this man, but it seems like there's much more there. And it works because they do not need to explain it. It's left up to your imagination. And that's why this movie has went down as an iconic classic. It's the mystery. I think that is one of the biggest parts of this film. Just like, for example, like the Blair Witch Project, we never do get to see the witch or know if she's really there. But it's the fact that she could be. And it leaves a lot to the imagination, which can be a lot more horrifying than showing you. I always had like a little theory, my own personal theory, which I don't like broadcast out there or anything, or I don't really see it as an actual storyline in this film. It's just a theory that I have, is that when Michael was 6 years old at the starting of this film, he was somehow possessed by this demon or this evil entity, which caused him to murder his sister. And when he escapes, this is this evil entity or this demon learning the world, because he never really knew the world. He only lived it for like 1 day before he got locked up, right? And to me, that's just my personal theory, and I think it's real interesting to dive into and think about stuff like that. And it would make the movie make more sense, but at the same time, you don't want to be answering those questions. So that's why I don't rely on this theory for the movie to work. It's just something that I kind of come up with on my own. Now, talking about the kills, these are actually fairly tame for today's standards, obviously, with all the brutality and that we've gotten. But at the time in 78, we didn't have these super gory slashers like Friday the 13th and that. That was more the beginning of the 80s on, at least in North America. They did have some gory stuff over in Italy and stuff with their Giallo films and such. But in America, they didn't have a whole lot of gore. Even like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and that, it was more left up to the imagination. In this movie, we get mostly chokings and off-screen kills. We do get one really great kill, though, with Bob's death. Myers scaring the shit out of everybody when we're watching this movie. Popping out of, like, I don't know if it's a closet or whatnot, and stabbing Bob to the wall, pinning him to the wall off the ground. Now, for one thing, to have a knife that strong is one thing, but to have a person that strong to be able to lift you up and stab you, and just the way the kill happens, too, it's so out of nowhere and unexpected. And it's just freaking great. Easily the best kill in the movie. Even though this movie, it's not about the kills. It's more about the atmosphere. Another thing I like to talk about that not a lot of people mention is the whole ending. Where we're getting all these shots of all the different locations of the films. Different rooms, the Myers house and everything. And it's all empty. There's complete isolation. There's no one there, but we hear the heavy breathing of Myers in the mask over top. The audio of that is played over all these shots. That is just hair raising to me. It means his presence is still felt. He's still out there, and he could strike at any time, and that's what's scary. And I just feel like this whole end scene doesn't get mentioned quite enough. And we get a lot of terrifying scenes in here. One obviously being the closet scene, where Laurie's in the closet and Myers is breaking in. That shit's freaking scary as hell. As well as Laurie running down the street, knocking on doors, trying to get somebody to help her while she's screaming in agony. Runs to the door, trying to get it unlocked of the house she was staying at with the kids. And Myers is slowly walking across the street at her. It's like a ticking time bomb. You're like, is she going to make it in on time? It's so great. But my personal favorite scene for scariness, for being scary, is actually the intro. I know it's not a lot of people's scary scene. We get a young Myers here, just as the kid with the clown mask. But the way it's filmed and everything, we got these like POV shots of the kid going in the house, getting the knife and that. It's almost like a found footage film, which I find really creepy when done right. But what really makes it scary, I feel like, is the music inserted over, the score again. It's just so goddamn eerie, and it just adds so much spookiness to this intro. And it's the fact that it feels so grounded, and to have this child murderer go up and kill his own sister, like in a really brutal way. And I like how we only get to see it through the little eye holes of the masks. We didn't need to see the whole thing either way. It was just the fact that it happened, and it's just intense. And I feel like this is the scene that always got me when I first watched this movie. Even when I was like 15 or 16, I'm like, wow, this is pretty gritty and intense for an intro. Again, the rest of the movie is still pretty scary with its atmosphere and its Myers, but there's something about child killers that just does something different for me. And that's why I find this whole intro to be the scariest part of the film, personally. So there you have it, guys. There's my quick thoughts on the Halloween movie from 1978, John Carpenter's classic. As a whole, the franchise as a whole, it's not my favorite. But if you're just taking this one film individually, it's definitely a classic in the slasher genre. It's one of the best for sure, and it's a must-watch in October. And I cannot recommend it enough. This is a highly recommended movie for you guys if you have not seen it, which would be crazy if you're in the horror and you haven't seen Halloween. But definitely go check it out if you haven't. Let me know down below what you think of this classic. Is it one of your favorites? Let me know all that down below in the comments section. And until next time, guys, thanks for watching.